and welcome, fellow digital soldiers, to True Reporting. It is the 2nd of September, and on today's podcast, I have a good one for you today. It is the reason why I always question why Trump calls us special people. And it says here from collectiveevolution.com, the CA document confirms reality of humans with special abilities able to do impossible things. Now, my friends, I always harp on this time and time again, and this is what I want to show you because it is so important. But before we get into today's podcast, my friends, would you please welcome my sponsor, MyPatriotSupply.com. Hey guys, Thomas with True Reporting here, and I wanted to tell you about my sponsor, My Patriot Supply. Did you know that September is National Preparedness Month? And with Hurricane Dorian bearing down on the East Coast, you better be prepared. And I am, because I have My Patriot Supply, and I have 4 weeks worth of food that gets delivered to me in this beautiful tote. Inside this tote, we see here I have 4 weeks worth of food: Maple Grove oatmeal, Traveler's stew, homestyle potato soup, so on and so forth. I am prepared and I am ready to go. All I need is a pot of boiling water and to dump in one of these packets, and I am good to go. And for the month of September, National Preparedness Month, My Patriot Supply will be giving this away for a $100 discount off. This is huge, my friends, so take advantage of it and go to preparewithtrureporting.com. That is preparewithtrureporting.com to receive your discount today. Thanks, guys. Be safe and enjoy the podcast. All right, guys, it's good to have you aboard. Before we get into today's podcast, would you please go ahead and click that notification bell so when I post to this channel, you'll be the first to know. Also, go ahead and click that like button. The more likes that this video receives, the more times it is recommended to other viewers, thus more eyes on the truth. This is a war of censorship, and this is a way to combat it, my friends. And with that being said, let's go ahead and hop into it. This is True Reporting. So I find this extremely interesting, guys, and I wanted to share it with you today. It says, the CA document confirms reality of humans with special abilities able to do impossible things. Cases of mind-influencing matter have been reported throughout history and across many cultures. More specifically, in regard to supernormal abilities, which include telepathy, psychokinesis, and other phenomena that lie within the realms of parapsychology. This is evident in ancient literature, from the Vedic text and the Yoga Sutras to Jesus, Moses, Milarepa, Muhammad, and more. Modern-day evidence is suggesting that these abilities are much more than folklore. Fast forward to today, and scientists have been exploring the mind-matter relationship for more than a century. We have established that consciousness, or factors associated with consciousness, do in fact have observable effects on what we call the physical material world, albeit very small effects. It's important to note that these effects aren't always seen by the observable eye, but they are known at the quantum level. If you want to learn more about that, a great place to start is with Dean Radin, the chief scientist at the Institute of Noetic Sciences. The most commonly used experiment to illustrate the connection between consciousness and our physical reality is the quantum double slit experiment, which shows that observation, in quotes, not only disturbs what has to be measured, they produce it. At the end of the day, our pioneering physicist, as Max Planck, he originated quantum theory, said, regards consciousness as fundamental and matter as derivative from consciousness. Eugene Wigner, a physicist and mathematician, said that it was not possible to formulate the laws of quantum mechanics in a fully consistent way without reference to consciousness. You can read more about that topic in a little more detail here. The CA document. The document is titled Chronology of Recent Interests in Exceptional Functions of the Human Body in the People's Republic of China. Guys, this is coming from a white paper from the CA. This is real. In the document, it outlines the Chinese government's interest in parapsychology, remote viewing, telepathy, psychokinesis, etc. The U.S. government also openly had, and probably still does, an interest in parapsychology, which is most evident within their Stargate program. That program lasted more than 2 decades before the public became aware of it. Stargate program, I have a feeling that Space Force is actually a lead up to this sort of program. It's more of like kind of brushing up the public next to something that they maybe not be aware of, right? That they're trying to get us adjusted for disclosure on sorts of these types of programs, right? Very interesting. Here's another one titled Research into Paranormal Ability to Break Through Spatial Barriers. This touches upon the same thing. This is elaborated on later in the article. Particular document, which has declassified through a Freedom of Information Act request, the FOIA, outlines specific people with very special abilities and how they've been studied by thousands of scientists and governments around the world for a very long time. The document is on the CA website, but only seems to be accessible from the Internet Archives, a San Francisco-based nonprofit digital library with the stated mission of universal access to all knowledge. These facts were also outlined in a declassified U.S. Air Force report on teleportation, which was made available through the Federation of American Scientists. Below is a brief outline of the document. Get this, guys. In 1979, a major Chinese science journal, Ziran Zachi, Nature Journal, carried a report on non-visual pattern recognition, in which numerous accounts of exceptional human body functions were confirmed. As a result, an unofficial preliminary organization to study this type of thing under the watch of Nature Journal. In 1980, the journal and the Chinese Human Body Science Association held a parapsychology, remote viewing, telepathy, psychokinesis, clairvoyance, and more conference in Shanghai with participants from over 20 research institutes and universities. In 1981, over 100 centres to study children with purported exceptional abilities and mental capabilities were formed with the corporation of more than 100 formally trained scholars. In 1982, the Chinese Academy of Sciences sponsored a public hearing in Beijing that more than 4,000 scholars attended regarding cases of parapsychological abilities with humans. They called for, in quote, fair but strictly controlled tests to lead to a final judgment. And what does this bring to mind, my friends? This brings the show Stranger Things, where you have a young girl taken from her mother, brought into a CA laboratory, and thus they do tests on her to see what her capabilities are. This is done day in and day out. People are saying that there's populations on Mars, on the moon, other galaxies, so on and so forth. I'm starting to believe this, guys. I'm starting to believe that there are a ton of special people on this planet and off planet as well. The document outlines how many of these scholars agreed that the scientific evidence for the paranormal was not sufficient enough to make any conclusions. The next point is arguably the most important one disclosed in the document. In April of 1982, a joint trial was arranged by the party's National Committee of Science at Beijing Teachers College. Proponents of both sides attended. The results were mostly negative, with the exception of a few, one of them being Zhang Boixing. I'm going to call him ZB. After this happened, 2 Chinese scientists, Chen Xin and Mei Li, gave a speech on it at the Joint Convention of the Parapsychological Association at the Society for Physical Research held at Cambridge University. Shortly after that, in 1983, a series of PK experiments with the subject ZB were conducted by 19 researchers led by Professor Lin Shuhang of the Physics Department of Beijing's Teachers College. He was able to do some special things, which is elaborated later on in the article. After this became known, as written in the document, in 1984, ZB became a full-time subject of the military-run PSI research team. What was he able to do? One of Zhang's accomplishments involved moving sealed objects in and out of sealed containers. Lin Shuang, as mentioned above, who is from the physics department of Beijing Teachers College, studied this man for 6 months and described experiments where small pieces of paper were placed in a sealed test tube. After 5 minutes, with scientists observing and videotaping from various angles, the pieces of paper somehow appeared outside the tube despite the fact that the test tube was still sealed and undamaged. He went on to do the same thing with other small objects like paper clips and even live insects. In 1987, the researchers at the Institute of Space Medico-Engineering, also mentioned in the CA document earlier in the article, made public a fraction of their work in the form of films showcasing their work and what they had accomplished. The film showed a medicine pill moving through an irreversibly sealed glass vial, which occurred in 3 frames of a 400 frame per second film. Another release about Zhang from the CA, research into paranormal ability to break through spatial barriers, states, a wooden cabinet, 120 by 180 by 60 centimeters, was used as a sealed container. Sheets of paper and boards with one of a kind marking were used as the target objects and placed inside the cabinet on the upper shelf. Without damaging the cabinet or opening the door, the person with ESP was able to remove the target objects and also was able to put them back inside. This demonstrates that even when using a especially large container, it is possible to completely break through spatial barriers. However, the success rate was much lower and was exceptionally difficult. Apparently, Zhang wasn't the only one. According to Eric Davis, PhD, FBIS, from a declassified U.S. Air Force document obtained by via the Federation of American Scientists, Xu Hang reported that gifted children were responsible for the teleportation of small physical objects from one place to another. Some of these objects included watches, horseflies, other insects, radio microtransmitters, photosensitive paper, and more. The participants never touched the objects beforehand. The experiments were done under both blind and double-blind conditions, and the researchers involved came from various colleagues and sectors of the Department of Defense. This is an exceptional case because it was deemed necessary that an unclassified intelligence information report be prepared for public viewing. According to Dr. Dean Radin, chief scientist at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, conducted an experiment involving mental teleportation of bits of paper out of a sealed plastic film container. This was documented in a report published in 2010 by retired research chemist Dong Xin. What's even more fascinating is that these methods were taught to others and the success rate was 40%. Wow, that's almost half. This information comes via one of his books, Super Normal. Dean Radin, the chief scientist at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, states, evaluating the details and credibility of these studies have been difficult because many of the papers appear only in Chinese. The techniques have not yet been reported outside of China, and the experimental methods employed in conducting such tests do not appear to be as rigorously controlled as compared to typical Western methods. According to Eric Davis, however, the results of the Chinese teleportation experiments can simply be explained as a human consciousness phenomenon that somehow acts to move or rotate test specimens through a fourth spatial dimension, so that specimens are able to penetrate the solid walls/barriers of their containers without physically breaching them. Another great example comes from a study published in the American Journal of Chinese Medicine, as seen in the U.S. National Library of Medicine. The study demonstrated that a woman with a special ability was and is still able to accelerate the germination of specific seeds for the purposes of developing a more robust seed stock. As the study states, Chulin's son is a woman with exceptional powers. Shin and Sun, 1996 and 1998, a member of the Chinese Somatic Science Research Institute. She is a practitioner of Waqi. Waqi is a type of Qigong that teaches the practitioner to bring the key energy of traditional Chinese medicine under the control of the mind. Shulin Sun can induce plant seeds to grow shoots and roots several centimeters long within 20 minutes using mental projected Qi energy. This has been demonstrated on more than 180 different occasions at universities as well as science and research institutions in China, including Taiwan and Hong Kong, as well as other countries, Japan, Thailand, Malaysia, etc. It says here, Quinn et al., 1998, Lee et al., 1999. We took part in and repeated the Qi germination experiment 7 times, and 5 of them succeeded. This is huge, guys. This remarkable effects on seeds development has drawn widespread attention, but the biological mechanisms that underlie this phenomenon are unknown. Pretty remarkable, isn't it? How does Sun do it? Apparently, she enters into a deep trance-like state, and from this place, she is able to advance the time required for sprouting dry seeds from their usual 3 to 4 days to 20 minutes, generating a sprout growth of 3 to 4 inches. After genetic analysis, scientists confirm this to be the case, hence the using of the word rapid in the title. The abstract of the study also states, it was thought preliminary that Qi energy changed the structure of a germination correlated gene site, speeding up the expression and advancing it in time. Qi is believed to be everywhere on Earth. When you're healthy, Qi is flowing freely through you. Whereas when you're unhealthy, you either have a blockage from Qi or your Qi tank is low. Perhaps Sun has learned how to harness universal energy, allow her to essentially speed up the growth of process of the plants. This would make sense if you believe in the concept of oneness, that we are all fundamentally connected to one another, including the plant life around us. And that's true. Everything around us is alive. Everything. We're all connected. We are all in the same consciousness. Among the most marvelous, most frightening, and certainly most unbelievable possibilities suggested by physics folklore is that human beings may be able to exert an observable influence upon the physical world simply through the power of conscious intention or unconscious intention, or by some accounts through the assistance of spiritual intelligences, or as a result of mysterious principle known as synchronicity. Some scholars, such as Stephen Broad, professor of philosophy at the University of Maryland, take such reports from seriously, claiming that no honest person can examine the case of study reports and easily dismiss them. Regardless of whether or not you believe any of these people possess the aforementioned superhuman capabilities, this subject is clearly worth studying. If this didn't merit further research, do you really think government organizations would be studying these people and trying to hide these programs from you? Which brings me to my next point. What does this tell us? These reports, among many others, clearly proves that there are cases of individuals with supernormal abilities, and the CA is well aware of them and has further researched the subject. These revelations prove that not only do these superhumans exist, but mainstream science cannot further investigate parapsychology and refuses to fund the research and even shuns it. However, this subject is still heavily studied by the secretive military-industrial complex. Think about that for a second. For example, the report states that the decision was announced by Hyung Yu Bang, the party's general secretary. Exceptional functions of the human body was rejected as an approved subject of scientific research, but a minority group of scientists was to be allowed to continue their research and report it in an internally circulated publication for the consideration of interested scientists. The media were requested not to publish on the topic. Former university research and government funding was halted. After you read the above quote, then ask yourself, why did ZB become, in quote, a full-time subject of the military-ran PSI research team? Why do they get to do all the research and receive all of the funding? Clearly, this topic is taken very seriously within these programs. But why the ridicule within the mainstream science then? The cutting of these programs is not because there is no interest, but because that interest lies in the world of secrecy, otherwise known as the black budget. World of secrecy. In the United States, the Stargate program was a great example of a special access black budget program. This means that all the information and findings within these programs remain secret and unknown to the mainstream world. From these, we have unacknowledged and waived SAPs. These programs do not exist publicly, but they do indeed exist. They are commonly referred to as deep black programs. A 1997 U.S. Senate report described them as so sensitive that they are exempt from standard reporting requirements to Congress. There is a lot of evidence to suggest that these programs are not using billions of dollars, but trillions of dollars that are completely unaccounted for in the books. Here's a statement given by Canada's former Ministry of National Defense, Paul Hellyer, in 2008. It is ironic. Again, this is the former Minister of National Defense for Canada. It is ironic that the U.S. would begin a devastating war allegedly in search of weapons of mass destruction when the most worrisome developments in this field are occurring in our own backyard. It is ironic that the U.S. should be fighting monstrously expensive wars allegedly to bring democracy to those countries when it itself can no longer claim to be called a democracy when trillions, and I mean thousands of billions of dollars have been spent on projects with both Congress and the Commander-in-Chief know nothing about it. We are talking about large amounts of unaccountable or unaccounted for money going to programs we know nothing about. There have been several congressional inquiries that have noted billions and even trillions of dollars that have gone missing from the Federal Reserve System. One of those took place during 9/11. You can read about a Black Budget Project in more detail with more sources and information from previous articles we have published here. And my friends, I'm telling you, we are very special people, and Trump knows this. I think this is what he is alluding to. There's so many movies based on this. There's CA documents that are hidden from us, trillions and billions of dollars hidden from us. Why are they keeping it from us? Why don't they allow us to understand and actually go into ourselves and bring out these special abilities? I believe with most certainty that we are able to heal ourselves, that we are able to use telepathy, also telekinesis. I believe that is installed within us. We just have to bring it out into this world. And I believe one day we will be able to do this. My friends, if you found this informative and you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel. You can follow me on Twitter at TRUreporting. Don't forget to leave a like. You can donate to this channel and keep it afloat by going to my PayPal, Patreon, PO Box, and also TRUreporting merch. All the links are in the description box below. So again, this is the best way to support the channel. My friends, I hope you have a wonderful evening, and I will talk to you very soon. Take care of one another and love one another, and I will speak with you very soon. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.